what you would get here is, we had this talk last year, and last year it was all about just the new things, and that's good, but at the same time, sometimes you discover some new functionality which was there for 20 years, but it's now rediscovered, and it's actually also useful. So I'm trying to give some middle ground there. Which I already mentioned. I'm from Hungary, so that's not need saying. So by default, Writer is doing the same as Calc and Impress. You get the notebook bar in Collabora Online. You can switch to the classic mode if you want. And you get the usual things that you would expect from a collaborative editor. You have your own cursor. You also see where others are. There was a recent improvement there that we used to have this, that collaborative cursors are moving, and then for some time out you see the names there, but if they are not moving, then you don't really know who that person is. So now you can go there with the mouse, hover over the collaborative cursor, and you will again see the name, even if they are trying to hide. Also, you can see the avatar and the full name in this top right corner with the follower list. Then by default, we have one central model on the server, which means that we have a series of actions to the document model, and that would also give you one list of actions to undo or redo. And that's fine because it's consistent, but at the same time, it's a bit surprising when you are co-editing and you would like to undo your change, but at the same time, somebody else was typing in some other place of the document, and now it's not really clear how to undo your change because it might have an effect on the change of somebody else. So what we do is that in some selected cases, we do a rearrangement. We can do a reordering of this undo-redo stack, and then you can undo your change, even if your change was not the last one. For the commands, we have a browser native user interface there. You can do fancy things like @mention users there, and if the integration is up for the task, then they know how to notify that user. You can also reply to existing commands, resolve commands, these kind of things. Another thing that is, if you have a very long document with a few commands and you would like to go through those commands, then you can use the navigator sidebar and on the left-hand side, and then you can jump through each and every of these commands. So you don't need to search for these manually. And before that was a bit tricky because you have the search, but you search for some content, you can't type and show me all the content. Another relatively recent improvement is that nowadays you can have the settings API so the server can store something which is not default setting, but something that is your setting or pre-configured setting for your organization or your group. And as part of that, for example, you can have custom dictionaries. So we don't start from some predefined default state at the start of editing each and every document, but you can have some additional knowledge there. I talked about this. We have the tab view by default, and you can also switch to this menu-based compact view. Another choice you can make is if you need something which is not there in the tab view, then we also have the sidebar with more details on what you would do. We had a whole talk on this yesterday that change tracking has some recent improvements with the side-by-side comparison and this highlights, so you go over the change and then you can see who was changing that, when that change happened, and so on. We have the review tab on the notebook bar, and then inside that we have these sections. So there is a whole section just for the change tracking, whether you record changes or not, and if you show them or not, and if you show it, then how you show that. Is that side by side? Is that in line? So you can decide that. As with any other of these context menus, now most of these menu items have icons there, and sometimes that is easier to jump to rather than reading all the text. Similar to custom dictionaries, also predefined auto text is possible there. So it's like you type some acronym, or imagine you are a doctor and you type some short, one-word identifiers for disease, and you type flu, then you press F3, and it gets expanded to something, some description of that. We have, given that we handle documents on the server side, we have the fonts for that, and then we need to deal with what happens if some commercial font is used inside the documents. So for most commercial fonts, we have a replacement, and then we can show that nicely. Then we can do, instead of dealing with sections, and then you have, let's say, two sections alternating between the two, and having direct formatting there, you can also have a page style, and then inside the page style you can configure all these complex things like headers, columns, headers, footers, footnotes, columns, whatnot. There was a whole session on electronic signing last year, so just mentioning that's still there. We have a partner who can provide you with actually legally binding, at least inside the EU, electronic signatures. So this is qualified electronic signatures. The actual signature binary is not produced by us, but we can integrate that into your document. And the really nice thing there is that this is respecting your privacy. We only send the hash of the document to this external service, so you don't need to, you have some very sensitive contract, you don't need to hand out your document to an external party for signing, but at the same time you can work with an external party in case they know how to do this correctly, so that it is consistent with existing regulations. In general, in case you can, then please do use the styles, especially paragraph styles. If you go with heading 1, heading 2, and so on, and not do direct formatting, then that will automatically give you an outline in the navigator. Also, you can have whole sidebar for styles, and then you can have more details there, character styles and the others. Also, we have a highlight mode for styles where you can see, basically you get colors and numbers, and then you get an indicator of what paragraph style is used for a given content. So that's nice in case you would like to track down what style is influencing the weird formatting of that paragraph. Then also improvement from last year is that inside the tab view, many widgets have a drop down, and then you can have the most frequently used values for that, let's say margins or page size or something like that, without opening the full dialog. Inside the navigator, you have the outline of the document, but you can also have the search results there. That's a bit more flexible than this old status bar representation. It gives you more context. You see all the hits. Rush will have a whole talk on AI integration, but what's relevant for writer is that there is a sidebar to do this once you configure it, so if it's off by default and so on, but you do get some presets, and typically it can work with your selection. Once you select a piece of text, we can export that to Markdown, AI can work with that, and we get back some Markdown content, and you can paste that at the current cursor position. There is some good template support there, so in case you need to have some standard letterhead for your organization or something like this, this can be done easily. I think Pedro was also talking about this, that these context-aware tabs on the notebook bar are really nice. So in case you select a picture, you get a picture tab and you can do your actions there, or you enter a table and then you get the table-related actions there and so on. Then this is not new at all, but I think it's very less known that if you have you are taking minutes from a meeting, for example, and you have bullet points, then you can easily indent, like increase and decrease the indentation of the bullet point with tab and shift tab at the start of the paragraph. So you don't need to do lots of work with your mouse. You can do that. Also, there's Alt Shift, and then moving up and down can move bullets up and down. So you don't need to carefully select it, delete it. Oh, now I have an empty paragraph. Let's delete the empty paragraph. You go up, you paste. Oh, now I have two pieces of text inside the same paragraph. Let's split it and I'm done. Instead, you can use this to move content up and down inside bullets. And I think that's quite nice. We have all sorts of complexity with tables, handling them correctly, nested tables, floating tables, unfloating them, and so on. Also, in case you would like to extend the structure of the table, you can add the columns, remove columns, add rows, remove rows. All these functions are there in the notebook bar. Now, in case you want to do something in a non-interactive way, then not using the UI and not loading the document interactively, we also provide an API which can do two things for documents. One is that here is my document, give me all sorts of machine-readable details about the document. This is the document extract API. You give us your document. We give back some JSON about what interesting things we find in the document. And you can have some options there. And also, you can transform the document, which means, for example, you have a form to be filled in. You provide us the document. You provide us some JSON snippet which describes how to transform this, what fields to fill in, and so on. Or perhaps you want to update the. Let's say you have a chart which is manually nicely configured, but the data table is just a stub data. And then you can replace the data table of that chart. If you use styles, then you, for example, paragraph styles, then you not only get the navigator for free, but also you can insert a nice table of contents without much effort, because the structure of your document is something that you define. I talked about document comparison, so this is the inline one. This was always there. New this year is this side-by-side view of changes, which still gives you this dialogue of changes, so you can go one by one, but also you can just go there and get info on what is this change, who changed that, when did that happen, and so on. With the side-by-side view, all the deletions are red, all the insertions are green, and you have the matching part as kind of increased saturation. And we also color the frames of images according to this. This is the form filling. I mentioned that it's in case you nicely annotate your to be filled in parts of your form as content controls, then you have an easy way to fill these in with the document transform API. And yeah, I guess that kind of concludes my talk. Hopefully you have some nice user interfaces to choose from. Either you stick with the default notebook bar, or you go with the menu-based one, you get something consistent. All the actual document rendering is still unchanged. It's using the rendering engine, which has been worked on for decades. So it's quite high fidelity. An optional AI integration is coming to Writer. Go to Rasha's talk for details. And whatever is there in the Collabora Online UI is something that we tested for collaborative editing, so that it works nicely, not only when you edit alone, but when you edit together. So that's it. Thanks a lot.